Manus has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Manus is a true American hero. This is Rob Manus Live.
Yeah, I just want to say it's so well earned after watching your performance. I'm so pleased to present this proclamation to you.
Shen Yun received proclamations from San Diego County Board of Supervisor Joel Anderson and Poway Council member Jenny Mayeda. The group performed in Escondido, California from March 13 to 19. The audience enjoyed the live orchestra and transformative backdrop.
Together, it was just a huge masterpiece and a feast for the eyes and the ears.
You have to see it in person. I can't give it justice in describing it, but if you saw it in person, you'd be amazed.
It was so flawless. It was almost as if the dancers were just gliding, almost floating.
It was very entertaining, and it added such a great dimension to the whole performance.
Since its inception in 2006, Shen Yun's mission is to revive genuine traditional culture. It takes viewers through ancient legends to modern-day stories of the current persecution happening in China.
It was a story of good over evil. We saw what the communists did to China, and we also saw how people persevere and live past and improve their lives despite communism.
I missed out on a lot of this, the cultural heritage and experiencing, what my ancestors had, and so I'm really thankful that they preserved this for us and that I'm able to kind of catch up now.
The New York-based dance company portrays China's 5,000 years of culture, which was known as Divinely Inspired.
It was wonderful. It was a true display of grace and talent, and it was divine. I'm going to bring my whole entire family next time.
Dancing like I've never seen before. So it was quite amazing and uplifting, and I don't know how anybody could spend this time here and not feel super excited to tell their friends about it.
NTD News, Escondido, California.
Chinese communists are threatening that American dance company. Welcome to Whistleblower Wednesday. The Rob Manus Show's live on Worldview Tube, our X Spaces simulcast, Rumble, YouTube, Truth Social Plus, Amazon Fire, and now Apple TV and Roku. Well, Shen Yun is a classical Chinese dance troupe based in upstate New York, as you just heard, and they're dedicated to showcasing traditional Chinese culture. And it's facing bomb threats and violent emails on a daily basis, often linked to the Chinese Communist Party. Well, and Shen Yun's also, it was created to revive China's traditions and to showcase the beauty of China and that 5,000 plus years of history and tradition and culture before the devastation of communism. And now even reports indicate that the CCP is influencing groups like the mainstream media and American regulatory agencies and international ones, too, to push its agenda. That strategy that could be used against any institution in the future. Don't we have enough problems with China in this country? You can see why Shen Yun is being targeted so aggressively in that opening video. The group receives very high praise for its accurate depiction of Chinese art and traditions before communism at every venue it performs at. And that's not just in America, it's around the world. And the CCP, well, they're going to do everything they can to prevent that. Jared Madsen's my guest today. Jared is a master of ceremonies for Shen Yun. He's the host of Learn Chinese Now. He's an audiobook narrator and holds a master's degree in Chinese medicine. Jared, welcome to the Rob Manus Show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, when I first saw this story, Jared, I had to get it on my Whistleblower Wednesday show because I don't think a lot of people realize what's happening here. When I say a lot of people, everyday Americans, people that may have even watched the show and attended the show around the globe. it kind of surprised me that I wasn't aware of it because I'm a CCP watcher pretty aggressively.
Well, I think that Shenyun is a litmus test. And what I mean by that is that we're this homegrown company. So it's traditional Chinese culture. We started in 2006. Each performance, it goes through 5,000 years of traditional culture. One would think the Chinese government would love to have this. We're promoting Chinese culture and all the beauty and the divineness and the spirituality of 5,000 years of Chinese culture. But they have been against us since the very beginning.
So where did the idea come from? What was the genesis of putting this company together specifically to do that, to educate the world on 5,000 years of Chinese history?
Sure. So I'll go back. I won't go back 5,000 years. I'll go back about 30 years. So in 1992, the practice of Falun Gong was introduced in China. So it was you can think of it as kind of like a Buddhist practice, but not a Buddhist religion, a meditative practice. That was introduced in 1992, but it has very ancient roots. It's a very Chinese practice. That grew from 92 to 1998, according to the Chinese government's statistics, 70 to 100 million people practicing in China alone. Mm-hmm. Now, in 1999, the leader of the Communist Party at the time, Jiang Zemin, due to simple factors, actually, like there being more people practicing Falun Gong than in the Chinese Communist Party itself, then launched this massive persecution campaign. Now I guess we have to go back even a little bit further. If you go back a few decades before that, we see after the communists took over in China, there was the Cultural Revolution, there was all types of movements. So it's almost like each leader, the most recent one from then would have been the Tiananmen Square Massacre in 1989. It's almost like each leader needs to find a group to persecute, and that gives them street cred in the communist world. And this was the group that Jiang Zemin started persecuting in 1999. The practice was outlawed. Millions of people were rounded up. They were put into labor camps. They were tortured in prisons. There was forced organ harvesting, where perfectly healthy people would have their organs harvested and sold for profit. So that happened in 1999. That's when it started. I mean, the persecution goes on to this day. So then around 2004, I'd say 2005, some of the Falun Gong practitioners thought, let's make a show. I'm in Manhattan right now. I'm at Lincoln Center right now. We have our first Shenyun performance here in Manhattan tonight. And it started in New York. And people thought, you know what, let's just put on a show. At that point, it wasn't called Shenyun. It was just a show about traditional Chinese culture and then one or two pieces about Falun Gong. In 2006, that developed into, let's do this for real. Let's create an actual performance company. So this is Falun Gong practitioners in the United States, some who had escaped persecution, some who, like me, I started practicing Falun Gong in China in the 90s when it was legal, when the Chinese government praised it for all the health benefits. Right? I remember seeing on the TV when I was there and reading the newspaper articles, all the praise and benefits about the healthcare costs saved and all of this. You have 100 million people sitting around meditating. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So in 2006 is when the performance was established. I joined in 2007 and very soon, I would say by 2012 is when we really started selling out. And from that point on, most all of our shows will sell out. And the Chinese Communist Party didn't like that at all. Most of the show is traditional Chinese culture. Like I said, it goes through the different dynasties. We see different ethnic groups. There's generally around 18 to 20 pieces. One to two pieces are about Falun Gong itself, right? So we'll have one piece about the persecution of Falun Gong. So, a small percentage, less than 10% of the entire show talks about Falun Gong. 90+% is just traditional Chinese culture. But I think it's actually the traditional Chinese culture that is the greatest threat to communism. It's not so much Falun Gong, it's that traditional Chinese culture itself, with its belief in the divine for 5,000 years, this is an existential threat to the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party is officially atheist. You can believe in nothing beyond the Chinese Communist Party. We have to bow down and praise the Chinese Communist Party. And I see that as being the biggest threat that they see Shenyun as, a simple performing arts company in New York.
So belief in the divine, it boils down to that. I mean, there's a lot of history over 5,000 years. I was going to ask you, if there's anything specific. Let me just ask it. Beyond the belief in the divine, is there something specific about Chinese heritage, history, and traditional culture that the Communist Party can't handle? I mean, obviously they're atheists, right? But it's a powerful organization. Obviously, it's maintained power for many, many decades now through various means, including violence and everything. I guess it links in my mind to that Cultural Revolution period where they killed all those people, and then the Falun Gong seemed to have revived the traditional culture, and that's why they're coming after the Shenyun.
Yeah, well, I would say to take a step back to the culture itself, I would say that faith itself can be very scary for any tyrannical government, right? Because you're believing in something that is outside of the government. At the same time, traditional Chinese culture embodies many of the same, we can call them universal principles, right? So no matter what country you're from, what ethnicity, what culture, man, woman, none of that matters. We all kind of have, across the world, we have a lot of these basic virtues in dignity, courage, compassion, love. Every culture has these. Communism does not. You know, so when people stand up and people are courageous and stand up in the face of oppression, that's something that as we have seen, this is not necessarily my opinion, we have seen that through decades of Chinese communist rule. Anytime a group stands up, they are immediately violently suppressed. Yeah,
that's a good point. Which is one of the reasons why people are confused about what's going on with Russia these days, because God has come back into play in that country, and it's much more difficult to pin it down to a tyrannical type structure like you can the Communist Chinese Party. The CCP is still there, still strong from what we can tell here in America. So before we go to our first break, though, how did you said you were in China when you started practicing Falun Gong. I wanted to ask you, what is your connection to Chinese culture and history that led you to be where you're at so quickly after they were organized?
So to go back, my parents tell me that when I was a little kid, I grew up in Portland, Oregon. When I was young, I was born in Portland, Oregon, and there was a Chinese man who lived next door to us who practiced Tai Chi every morning. And apparently I would go out and I would watch him practice, and I was just fascinated by it because in my memory, I've always been incredibly fascinated with traditional Chinese culture, and I've always had the dream of not only learning and imbuing myself with traditional Chinese culture, but also giving that to the Western world, because I think there's many gems that traditional Chinese culture has. So in high school, I was lucky enough, it was the only high school in my state. I grew up in Iowa. It was the only high school there that had Chinese language, so I got to learn Chinese. I went with school year abroad to China when I was 17 years old. It was the first group of high schoolers that got to live in China. So I have been totally fascinated with Chinese culture my whole life.
Wow. Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, we've got some questions from our live audience. I knew they would have questions for you because this is a fascinating story, and it's very important to the folks in this audience who are paying very close attention to this adversary, the CCP, and what it wants to do in the future and what it is currently doing today. And we'll be right back with the one of the MCs from Shenyun, Jared Madsen, right here on the Rob Maness Show.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
We're kind of used to it. I mean, imagine you're a performer in a dance company based in New York, and you're just used to getting bomb threats, and you're used to getting death threats. And the kind of email threats that we're getting back at headquarters saying they're going to throw us off of buildings, we're going to be killed in mysterious car accidents, and our houses are going to be burnt down, their family members are going to be murdered. And this is almost a daily occurrence.
Shen Yun is a classical Chinese dance troupe based in upstate New York, whose mission is to restore and showcase traditional Chinese culture. If you visited a major city recently, you've probably seen their billboards. Shen Yun Performing Arts says the threats, often in Chinese, are usually linked to the Chinese Communist Party.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're talking about how the Chinese Communist Party is threatening Shen Yun, which is this wonderful dance company that's based out of New York State that performs essentially the 5,000 years of traditional Chinese culture and history in a beautiful art performance. I'm not going to show too long of clips because I want people to go see this show and see these performers when they come to their area, or if they're in an area where they're performing, because it's fabulous when you take a look at it. My guest is one of the MCs for the show of Shen Yun, Jared Matson. And Jared, you know, as I was researching for the show today, I came across a comment from somebody. I can't remember if it was you or Li Xing, the other MC, and it said something to the effect of, if you've been to China today under communist rule, but then you see Shen Yun perform the 5,000-year history in its performance, you can see how the communism is destroying China. It's not obvious until you're able to see the comparison of the two, and that struck me as, well, no wonder the CCP is really after the people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Can you talk us through a little bit more detail about the actual violent threats that you all are getting and how they come into you, what types of threats they are of violence, where they're happening at? It's not just in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's almost has become just kind of the norm for us to get these threats. They started from the very beginning. When they started at the beginning, it was more the Chinese embassy or the Chinese consulate would directly contact theaters. They would call them, send letters, send emails, and tell them, don't let Shen Yun perform. It will ruin China-U.S. relations. So that was more where it began, but that never really had much of an effect, especially in the U.S. Theaters were like, this is, what do I care about this, right? Like this is ridiculous. And even I remember a show that I was at in Ottawa. After the show, I went out to the lobby and I met a lot of the members of Parliament came to the show, and I thought that was interesting. I asked them, like, thanks for coming. Like, well, how'd you guys hear about this? Said, we heard about this through the Chinese embassy. They all sent us letters and told us not to go to the show. And so what did they do? Of course, they went to see the show. They wanted to see what it was all about. Why does the Communist Party not want us to see this? For me personally, though, early on, after a few years, I remember when our tires started to get slashed. That happened a few years in, maybe, I don't remember the exact dates, 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. And I remember one that I personally saw. I went out and the driver to the bus pointed this, said, "Does this look right to you?" And I said, "Absolutely not." It wasn't the kind of, like you see in the movies where somebody takes a knife and stabs it into the tire and it loses all its air. What they would do is they would slice the outside part of the tire, but not get that inner tube. So the tire wasn't, apparently what happens is the tire doesn't go flat. What you do is you start driving, and then when you go in high speeds, the whole tire explodes and then causes a serious accident. So from that point on, we needed 24/7 security for all of our buses and trucks. And I tell you, it's hard enough to get a performance company out there and sell tickets, and now we have all these obstacles like having to get 24/7 security that other performance companies, this is not something that they have to deal with. Then they started the bomb threats, and the bomb threats this year, as I just heard that we have, I believe it's 41 this year alone, 41 bomb threats at various theaters around the world. Now, none of them, there's never been an actual bomb, but it just causes this great disturbance. We've had people have to leave the theater. The police have to come in, the FBI is contacted. They have to look into this. There is no bomb, but we're getting these threats nonstop. And I said at the beginning, I believe this is like a litmus test. I believe what the Chinese Communist Party is doing is taking Shenyun and going, let's see how far we can go with this. How far in the United States can we exert our influence? Because I was reading last year, I believe it was June of last year, 2024, 2 documents were released. They were some secret documents supposedly from the Chinese Communist Party, and it was talking about this strategy called America Against America. So where they try and get, whether it be media or government institutions, and use those to attack other entities in America, so that you don't see the CCP's fingerprints on it. And so last year we had never had bad press before. We've always had amazing press, and anyone who sees the show, they love it. They would give us rave reviews. But then they started to use American media outlets to attack us, and they would get institutions to do investigations into us. Now, of course, they haven't found anything, but I don't think that that's the point. I think the point is that they're trying to see how far they can take both the U.S. government, U.S. media, U.S. people, and use them against their own people. If this succeeds with Shenyun, then what group is next, right? I don't think they're going to stop at Shenyun.
Yeah, you're right. Well, let's take a question from the audience member, our host over there, Shell. Shell, go ahead. Who's got a question?
We have Joseph, sir.
Thank you very much, Colonel. Yeah, you said that you spent a lot of time in China early in your life. What do you think was the first time you finally recognized the totalitarian nature of the Chinese government? Because I know that a lot of us, when we spend a lot of time in China, Sinophiles like us, we're enamored by a lot of things, and it takes a while for it to sink in. So I'm just curious at what point it really sunk into you that the government was not the people, and that the people are separate from the government. And second, why do you think Xi Jinping is now focused on your group specifically in order to target it?
Sure. So I had the fortune of my Chinese teacher in high school was actually Dan Rather's translator during the Tiananmen Square massacre. So he told me all about the Tiananmen Square massacre, and I actually ran into Dan Rather at the airport several years back. And then he was telling me about some of the stories. So I already kind of had a heads up before I went into China. I had this great fascination with Chinese culture. So I still had these rose-colored glasses when I first got there. I thought, oh, all the great wisdom and everything like that. I would say it was probably about a year or two in. And I think that was especially because of my Chinese teacher in high school telling me all about the horrors of communism and what had happened during what he saw with his own eyes, people getting shot, things like that, during the Tiananmen Square massacre. And so after living there for a bit, you just see things that don't add up. It starts with, I take pictures of something that, I don't know, maybe it's like a building that's being torn down. And I remember people saying, hey, don't take pictures of that. And I'm like, why can't I? I'm just taking a picture. It would start with small things like that. And then you just start to see, so for example, the persecution of Falun Gong didn't start until 1999. But I believe it was around 1998, you couldn't buy the books anymore. So that was already like, okay, why can't I buy this book that's being praised? So I believe that they were already, they had already seen those numbers and that they were already starting to put it together, their plan to bring down Falun Gong. For Shenyun in particular, we are the voice of traditional Chinese culture. We're also, from another point of view, we're the voice for Falun Gong practitioners, at least for one of our pieces, 1 to 2 pieces during the show. We're exposing the persecution of Falun Gong in China. And I think that's why the Chinese Communist Party just sees us as such a threat. Now, if they just don't persecute Falun Gong, they do not outlaw Falun Gong, and they just let us do the show, I would think that the Chinese government would praise us, but that's not how it is.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to your original question you asked in the first show, why wouldn't the Chinese government, communist or not, be praising groups like Shenyun for highlighting the positive aspects of China and Chinese culture and what it's done for humanity for 5,000 years? Because there's been some amazing discoveries, scientific, engineering, and achievements over that time period. I mean, it's not like even I don't like to be positive about a communist government, but even the China of today is a remarkable people that has become a high achieving society in spite of the tyranny and those kind of things. So it's very puzzling that they would do that, because you're getting positive attention out of their negative activities, and they're not getting what they think they're getting, are they?
Right. Well, you have to go back and look at things like the Cultural Revolution and some of those movements where there was book burning, destroying of Buddhist temples, Taoist temples. So this is destroying their own you can't even call it their own culture, because communism is not inherently Chinese. That is a foreign concept, a foreign thing that came in. So it's this communist entity that's in China that's destroying that culture. Communism goes directly against Chinese culture. It's the exact opposite of Chinese culture.
Yeah, it's very puzzling, especially to those of us. I haven't been there. I haven't had an opportunity to visit it yet, but I have many colleagues and have studied this issue for decades now. That they really are confusing to a lot of people. Are you worried about conflicts, them being able to create conflict? And you can answer this after we go to the break, but I'll ask the question now, Jared. Are you worried about them creating conflict between Chinese background people, Chinese Americans, new immigrants, and being able to do that based on these hundreds of over 100,000 Chinese military-age males that have come through the southern border in the Biden administration by a lot of people's counts? That's something that I'm concerned about. I want to get you to talk about what you've seen and heard from folks in the culture, both in the country and outside the United States, maybe in China too. We'll be right back with Jared Mattson, MC of Shenyun, that teaches through their beautiful art and dance and music 5,000 years of positive Chinese history and tradition. We'll be right back.
Shenyun was forged 5 or 6 years into the persecution. It's really an entity aimed at, let's show the world how wonderful China was without communism. Let's show the world the real tyranny of the CCP. They're putting that on the stage for people to see all around the world, millions each year. And that's a message that the CCP really doesn't want to see. And what we're seeing now is their ability to weaponize, whether it's mainstream media, regulatory agencies, to go after Shenyun and try and shut it down. And that's a real danger, because this is a playbook. As I mentioned at the opening of my remarks, this playbook can be deployed against any individual or organization that the Beijing doesn't like. And indeed, I think that's one of the big concerns, is we're looking at a national security threat, is the bottom line.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're talking about Shenyun, a traditional Chinese dance company and art troupe that travels around the world and around the United States, as you just heard there, educating folks on the 5,000 plus years of Chinese culture, tradition, history before communism, and just highlighting that to people. And the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party, it's fighting against it, both violently and with regulatory agencies, unbelievable as that may seem to some. And my guest today is Jared Mattson, who's an expert on China and one of the MCs for Shenyun, and has been to the country quite a bit and has a lot of experience with the Chinese people and everything. And Jared, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, as somebody that's probably, I'm assuming, been in homes of regular folks inside China, this viewpoint that communism is there and in charge, but it's an external, as you pointed out, it's external to Chinese culture. Okay, it is not Chinese. They've tried to make it Chinese, through Mao and that kind of thing, but it's not. When you're talking to just regular folks about history and those kind of things, how do they come across as far as their views of this 5,000 years of phenomenal achievement?
You mean the people in China? Like
yeah,
Chinese
people in China, maybe even Chinese Americans who are recent immigrants, or one generation away from immigrants. How do folks see the difference between the two, and how do they talk about it?
Yeah, so that's where it gets tricky. So when I was in China, it was soon after the Tiananmen Square massacre. And what I was getting from most people is a feeling of hopelessness, that they are, of course, very proud of their culture, no matter what the Chinese Communist Party has done. Yeah. I mean, they've tried to burn the books and everything, but it's that information still is there, and it still gets out. And every Chinese person is going to be very proud of their culture. And when I was there in the early mid 90s, it was, Tiananmen Square massacre happened. That's it. There's no hope. We just need to leave. We need to get out. Now, the trick with some of this is when the Chinese Communist Party is great at compromising individuals, right? They're very good at using the carrot and the stick. And so that happens, of course, in China. Do what you're told. You'll get a little bit of benefit. If you don't, we know where your parents live. We know where your families live, and we are not at all afraid of giving them a visit. It's basically the Wild West over there when it comes to policing. But the same thing happens when people come here. It can happen. It doesn't always happen, but before the person gets on the plane to either go study at a university here, or now, people coming in who we have no idea what their background is. Right. They can be told ahead of time. Just remember, we know where your family is. And there's been many people who've been in various universities that have kicked everything from taking research and kicked that back to China. All different. I believe there was somebody who defected from the Chinese embassy many years ago, maybe close to 20 years ago at this point, in Australia. And at that point, 20 years ago, he said in Australia, there are over 1,000 Chinese agents, like sleeper agents, operating in Australia. So he said in the US, it has to be over 10,000. That was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, there were at least 10,000 agents operating in Chinese Communist Party agents operating in the US. Now is anyone's guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in close contact with a couple of people that have closely monitored the Darien Gap and the highway, the pathway for illegals that come up through the southern border. And during the Biden administration, they were physically out there counting whenever they were in the Darien Gap, and their estimates were over 100,000, mostly Chinese military-age males, not all, but mostly. And as you pointed out, people don't leave China unless they escape it or they're allowed to leave. Right. And that's why I wanted to ask you that when I read about this regulatory attacks, one of the things that came to my mind was, you remember the discovery of the Chinese Communist Party police station in New York that was discovered, and a couple other ones around the world in other Western countries. Could there be a linkage between that effort and the effort to extort folks, whether they're American citizens or not, could easily, strong arm people, right?
Operating within New York. I've been screaming about this stuff for many years, and now people are actually like, wait, what is happening? Yes, there are probably tens of thousands of Chinese Communist Party agents in the US doing who knows what, creating all kinds of underground things. Who knows what their plans are? And again, coming back to Shenyuan, I think that we are a test. They're seeing, okay, publicly, can we get away with how? I mean, according to the Communist Party themselves, that's world dominance.
Yeah, I mean, they say they're at unrestricted warfare with the United States and our allies already. It's just not kinetic. We've got another question over in the audience. Let's go ahead and take that. Go ahead, Shel.
We have Lucky Dog, sir.
Thank you. I was curious about any outreach from Taiwan, because it seems like the nationalists would love this sort of thing. Or are they a little bit worried about their cousins in the mainland? Okay, I'll land right there.
I performed last year in Taiwan to 30-some sold-out shows. Taiwan loves us because Taiwan never had the communist takeover. They've kept their culture going. They're a small island, but they've kept their culture going. Shenyuan is huge in Taiwan, for sure.
You ever have any problems with agents of the CCP in Taiwan at all?
Not as direct, and I think the reason is because Taiwan is much more sensitive to that. I mean, the presence is certainly there. I don't remember getting a bomb threat while we were there. Yeah, but most of the Taiwanese people who I met have just been incredibly supportive. Love the show. I mean, even when Chinese people come and see the show, I mean, we have many interviews that you can go see of people who came and watched the show. I mean, it's anybody, no matter what culture you're from. I mean, there's just so much beauty and just so much depth in the show, whether you're Chinese or not. It's just an amazing performance.
Yeah, I think I reviewed a sampling of about 10 of the I'm gathering their post-show interviews with audience members, like the one I led the show off with from California, and there were no negatives, zero. They were all, every citizen from every country that I looked at, they were all positive, and not just positive, but glowing, high-end compliments, and very appreciative of not just the art but the message, and that it's mostly like you said, 90% positive about Chinese culture, tradition, and those kind of things. So Jared, let me ask you on the regulatory tactics and strategy. What agencies in the United States are you all seeing this be implemented from?
Well, the Department of Labor has contacted us. I believe that maybe Homeland Security. They haven't. There's not really anything official yet. But as of last year, since all these articles started coming out, since this push from the CCP to go against Shen Yun has started coming out, some of these agencies have been contacting us. Now, I get the feeling it's more they contact us and they're like, there was a report, somebody reported something, so we have to go through these steps, and they look at us and say, everything seems fine. But for instance, our headquarters, for a period of time, there would be every several months, there would be a report to the environmental agency in New York. And every time they get, we think there's something going on with the environment up there. They would have to come up, they test the waters, they do whatever the report was. And then they, each time they found nothing because there isn't anything. That's not the point. The point is that they're trying to give us a hard time. Now, fortunately, the last time this happened, it went to a judge, and the judge said, you can no longer bring these reports. I am with prejudice, no more. We're done with that. So fortunately, from that point of view, on the legal side, we don't have those troubles to deal with anymore. But I just don't see the Chinese Communist Party stopping. They never stop. They try and find any way they can to get you.
Yeah, and especially from what we've seen during that last administration with the regulatory attacks on folks on the opposite side of the ideological spectrum as the Biden administration, it's nonstop. One thing gets settled and another thing starts. The punishment is the process. And that gets me to my next question. You mentioned the judge there. Is there anything like the lawfare we've seen against Democrats on Republicans here in the country? Is there anything like that on the horizon? Or are you getting any indications that there's going to be some lawsuits, those kind of things? Do you get threats from the lawfare side of this? That wouldn't be difficult to do. There are a lot of Chinese people involved in business and law here in the country.
Yeah, sure. So I think the difference between that, though, is in the U.S., obviously we're a performance. We're not a political organization. We have people on the left, on the right. Everybody comes. Everyone's welcome. You can come and enjoy the performance. So we don't have anybody in particular within the U.S. who's necessarily against us. This is that foreign entity of the Chinese Communist Party trying to stir up people to maybe file a lawsuit or to get this department or that department to look into us. But generally speaking, I still have faith in our American people, and no matter which side of the aisle they are on, that they will see this and go, this is nonsense. And we have had full support from both Democrats, Republicans, independents. But this is it's more that the Chinese Communist Party is finding loopholes within our system to use our system to attack American organizations. And to me, that's the scariest thing.
Yeah, it is scary. We're going to take our last break. When we come back, we'll hear from a recommendation or request to the DOJ. But I want to talk with Jared, get him to talk about the members of the cast. Where they come from, what they're like, because these are some beautifully talented people and look like mostly young people to me. So I'm very interested in their backgrounds. We'll be right back with Jared Mattson, MC of Shen Yun, and China expert.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com.
And Levi, I know the Falun Dafa Information Center has done research in terms of at least the New York Times coverage of Falun Gong and then a little bit Shenyun over the years. But how do you see maybe more broadly the Falun Gong community, if you will, responding to pieces like this that are attacking?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is we need to raise awareness and make people aware of the convergence that's happening in both time and goals achieved. Again, I'm not in the back rooms in the New York Times or other places that might be writing or publishing stuff and seems like an intentional hit piece. So we can't know what's happening in those back rooms, but we can look at the patterns, and we know for sure mainstream media, and this is the final nail in the coffin to try and eliminate Falun Gong. That's exactly what's happening. It matches timing, it matches the goals achieved. And I think that's really something we have to really focus on. It's very disturbing that the CCP would articulate goals to persecute a group of people here in the United States, and the New York Times is achieving that. That means hopefully the New York Times is doing some serious introspection. There's an audit. There's some sort of look at this. How did this come to pass? I think more importantly, the DOJ should look at this. The FARA Act that looks at foreign agents that are not, disclosing or letting people know. I mean, we know, for example, we know very clearly that some of those interview subjects have public and open ties to the Chinese government. The New York Times knows that. They use it in their report, and they publish it, and they don't let their readers know that. The DOJ should be looking at the New York Times. It should be looking at these interview subjects. It should be looking at the social media folks that are drawing this all up. This is clearly coordinated effort, it appears to me. And I think the DOJ needs to look at that, because we can't have this. Today it's Falun Gong and Shenyun. Tomorrow, what else? An American corporation, a mayor, who else? If they could do this to us, who else could they do this to? So I think we need, in this country, with the new administration coming in, they need to take a good long look at what's happening to Shenyun and Falun Gong and pick this apart piece by piece.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're blowing the whistle on the Chinese Communist Party's attacks on this art and dance troupe named Shenyun and the Falun Gong movement and people here inside the United States and really around the world. And my guest today is one of the MCs from Shenyun, Jared Madsen, who's also a China expert. Jared, I wanted to play that little clip there because it discusses the Department of Justice. We have a new set of leaders in the Department of Justice. New administration has a very focused agenda, and China as our main adversary. Not that we want them to be as an adversary, but the CCP is our main adversary and most threatening adversary to freedom and our way of life is one of those new focuses. And he mentioned the Foreign Agent Registration Act, FARA, potentially being used to look at these. And he was discussing the New York Times article, I guess a hit piece, and all the subjects. I think it's a reasonable ask that the DOJ be looking at those subjects to see if they are registered as foreign agents or if they are foreign agents and not registered, which is what people like General Mike Flynn have been accused of being before. And we all know the consequences that he and his family have paid for that and continue to pay, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that as being a member of Shenyun, I definitely would like to see that our government looks into every aspect of infiltration of the Chinese Communist Party coming in and attacking us. As an American, I want the same thing as well, because if the Chinese Communist Party, a foreign government, is coming in and attacking an American group, they're going after they're operating on U.S. soil. I just, to me, that is not acceptable, and that is, they are not going to stop. They're going to extend and go into other groups as well. So, absolutely, FBI, DOJ, whoever can do whatever, they need to really look into this, and we're willing to help. There's a lot of people who have information out there who is willing to help as much as they can.
Yeah, and that leads me to what I wanted to close the show with, is just give you an opportunity to talk about these wonderful artists and performers that you work with every day. You're one of them too. But who are these folks? Where do they come from? What are their backgrounds? What are their motivations? Because they're really exceptional performers, the parts of the show that I've been able to watch.
So I'll tell you, we have one of the most amazing group of people out there. So many of them they're not all Chinese. They're Westerners as well, but many are Chinese. Many of them grew up practicing Falun Gong, and it's the feel. I just want you to come sometime and just hang out with us and get the vibe. Or when we go to, say, airports, and people see us at airports, everybody is so calm and peaceful and respectful to each other. And I like at airports, we frequently have people coming up to me saying, "What group is this? These they're not kids, they're in their 20s, but to me they feel like kids. It's how they're so well behaved. They're not on social media. They're not focused on websites that they shouldn't be on. They're meditating every day." And then you just see that. You see this group of glowing individuals. And then you put that on stage. Our bass player, so we have a live orchestra as well. He tells me basically every single show that he watches, when the curtain goes up, he will see tears in people's eyes right from the beginning. I believe that traditional Chinese culture is imbued with this deep spirituality that it no matter what religion you believe in, no matter what faith you are, no matter what ethnicity, whatever, that this speaks to all of us. This is not, Chinese culture itself is not one particular religion. It's just this, it's this overall all faith in the divine. And you really feel that message come through, and that uplifting feeling come through. It's hard to describe. And you see people who get interviews, they have trouble describing it as well. I just feel better. I just feel inspired. I feel, whatever I'm doing on my life's path, I need to take that path well. And I need to, whatever religion I'm practicing, or whatever, maybe I'm not practicing a religion, I'm, working at my job or whatever it is, I feel inspired to be a better human.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. I don't know a lot about Falun Gong, but you've said enough here in this show that I want to know more. But it's basically meditation and movement and a way of being introspective with your spirit and your mind and your body, right? I mean, I don't see the danger, other than the numbers might have scared the Communist Party of people that are following it, but. I see more positive than I do negative, and always have. And the more I think about it and look into it, I do feel positive about that movement, not negative in a way that it should be. It should not be scaring the tyrannical government of the Chinese Communist Party. It's really a conundrum for me to figure that out. And these kids, I hesitated to call them kids too, but you did it, so I'm going to do it. These kids, where do they come from? What is their educational background? Are they all from Chinese immigrant families? You mentioned some are Westerners. So what types of education and talent do they bring to this team? Because it's pretty amazing looking when you watch one of the performances. I was amazed and very impressed with.
So they come from all different backgrounds, some from immigrants, and they're not necessarily Falun Gong practitioners to begin with. It's dance, so there are very strict height requirements and body length requirements. It's a professional dance company, so they can come from all walks of life. Now we have 2 schools that are connected, that are on the campus that Shenyun is. One is the Feitian Academy of the Arts, which is a high school, and the other is Feitian College. And all of these schools have full scholarships. So as long as you get in, it's kind of like a college athlete, right? Nobody has ever had to pay tuition at these schools. You get full training, you get room and board, you get taken all over the world. If you're accepted into the as a student, there's about 15% in the high school can actually go and tour with us. So from the ones who are really good, even from teenage years, they start to really experience life on stage and life traveling, and they get in this environment. I mean, it's spectacular. I just look back to when I was in high school. I would have loved to have an opportunity like this. I get to travel the world with my friends and do flips on stage for people. It sounds amazing.
And you do travel the world. What's the schedule looking like for the rest of the year? I'm assuming you're performing now.
Yeah, so we have our first show at Lincoln Center in Manhattan tonight, 3 weeks here. There's still shows throughout the US. There's shows in Europe. We have 8 companies, same size, that tour the world simultaneously. So we do close to roughly 800 shows a year. Each company does around 100.
Wow. And what's the funding structure for the organization? That's a lot of funding required to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have never received any government funding, and we have never received any donations from corporations. Virtually all performing arts companies do. So our funding, a vast majority, comes from ticket sales. And as of a few years in, I remember, I think it was maybe 2011, 2012, that we just started selling out every show that we did. And that's where our funding comes from. That's what pays for everything. We are not getting any external money. We're not getting any donations. So, come see the show. That's the best way to support us.
And you're probably the best projection of American society that is happening around the world. I'm going to pay you this compliment because even though this is about China's history and culture and everything, this is a projection of American society, the freedom to think the way you want, the freedom to believe in what you want, and the freedom to express it, especially in arts and sciences. I mean, we were founded on that. I hope the Kennedy Center will get you. And I hope this goes as a lesson, and somebody in government will watch this. Maybe Elon Musk will see this last 5 minutes, Jared, and say, USAID has wasted all these trillions of dollars over the decades, and all we had to do was put good people together that wanted to achieve something and not pay any government. That's what I believe I'm witnessing here. It's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show and helping us educate get this issue out there. It's very important that we get the attack stopped, but also support you all in your mission. It's fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Jared Batson of Shenyun. Go support him, folks. You can find him on X. Just Google either name. And they have web pages too. Tomorrow's Truth Thursday. My guest is T.S. Dixon. We're talking about his new book. It's going to be great. The Woke Mind Virus. I've been wanting to do this show for a long time. So I'll see you then on the Rob Maness Show.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at WVW Foundation.